on this Tuesday night.
Go ahead and throw it away.
A cross-border health alert about romaine lettuce. Officials say don't eat it. So why is it still on store shelves? Our health panel weighs in on the risks.
Let's figure out what the heck's going on.
More videos, more incidents, and yet more questions about assaults at a Toronto private school.
There should be someone held accountable for it.
How alumni are demanding change at St. Michael's College School.
A multimillionaire family, a gruesome murder, and now a mistrial.
It's been 7 years. I mean, that's ridiculous.
What this latest dramatic turn means for the high-profile case. This is The National. A warning tonight from health officials on both sides of the border. If you have romaine lettuce in your fridge, don't eat it, don't serve it. In some parts of the country, it may put you at risk. The Canadian Public Health Notice went out to residents in Ontario and Quebec, where 18 cases of E. coli infections have already been confirmed. 15 in Quebec, 3 in Ontario. So far, 6 people have been hospitalized with severe symptoms. And in the United States, the Centers for Disease Control have issued a country-wide warning. Despite the outbreak, neither Canada nor the U.S. has issued a formal recall. So far, it's just a warning. And as Jacqueline Hansen explains, that's creating some confusion.
Just to be safe, this Toronto grocery store pulled all romaine lettuce off its shelves until it can figure out if selling the lettuce would put its customers at risk.
When I came in here, it was one of the first things I was going to pay attention to see whether they still had it on the shelf or not.
What's going on to cause all these outbreaks?
Some Canadian grocers haven't taken action yet and don't have to. Officials in Canada and the U.S. say they're still trying to figure out the source of the problem. Until then, no official recall. In the U.S., the advice to consumers is clear.
They had already gone to the store and they have romaine lettuce in their home, just to go ahead and throw it away and not to serve it.
But in Canada, consumers are just being told to avoid it until more is known about the outbreak and the cause of contamination. Experts say this outbreak is like lightning striking twice. This strain of E. coli, O157, is the same one that was at the center of another romaine lettuce warning last December. Canada's Public Health Agency says it suggests there may be a reoccurring source of contamination. The strain is also more likely than others to make people severely sick. Simply washing the lettuce won't help.
Not only does it produce a diarrheal disease, but it can produce a toxin, a poison that involves the kidneys, so you can get subsequent kidney failure.
Officials are concerned there could be more cases.
We are getting reports from health departments that there are some more illnesses being reported.
The cause of last year's contamination was never determined, and experts say the source of this one will likely also be difficult to track. Lettuce is often repackaged on its way to stores or restaurants. For now, the lettuce delivered to this Toronto store will stay boxed up and out of reach of shoppers. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
So as Jacqueline mentioned, the strain of bacteria in this outbreak is the same that appeared in another outbreak linked to romaine lettuce from last year, and this has happened other times as well. So why is that? For more, let's turn to our health reporter, Kelly Crow in Toronto. What is it, Kelly, about romaine lettuce?
Well, the thing about romaine lettuce is that it's grown in the ground, as are many other vegetables, and all of them would have the same risk of being exposed to E. coli. But there's something about the romaine, in this case, a persistent source of contamination they now know for certain because they've been able to match the DNA fingerprints of the bacteria. So there's something going on in the supply chain that has exposed this romaine, and it could have happened. Usually what happens is it's irrigation water that's been exposed to livestock that is then put on the plants, but it could have happened in the trucking, in the processing, even in the grocery store for that matter.
And of course, with romaine lettuce, we're not cooking it like we are with some other row vegetables. So now we have this problem. Tell us about the detective work that's underway now to try to figure out the source of it.
Well, it's just like any other detective story. They need to interview the victims, ask them to remember everything that they ate, which is a challenge, find out how many of them ate something in common, in this case, romaine lettuce. The CDC already knows that about 11 out of 14 people have eaten the lettuce, so that's the process of elimination they use to find out what the culprit is. And then hopefully they will find the smoking lettuce leaf, and that would be somebody who still has it in their fridge. It has a short shelf life, so that makes that's unlikely. And then if they can find the bug on the leaf and then they know where that person purchased it, they can start the trace back. But most of the time, they don't ever get to the source.
Okay. Kelly, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll have more on this story ahead with our panel of doctors. What you need to know about E. coli, the symptoms and risks. One of the topics we'll cover when we go in depth a little later on The National.
In Toronto tonight, hundreds of former students are gathering at St. Michael's College School to seek a way forward from the scandal that has seized their elite alma mater. 2 new videos are under scrutiny tonight as police widen their investigation into physical and sexual abuse among students. Police have yet to confirm the identities of the people in the video or whether they're students at St. Mike's. Still, it all weighs heavily on a prestigious school that is older than Canada. This is day 7 of a growing scandal. Criminal charges have been laid against 6 expelled students, including gang sexual assault. 4 videos are now in police hands, and right now, hundreds of alumni are packed into a closed-door meeting. The CBC's Olivia Stefanovic has been following the story for The National. She's on the scene tonight. So, Olivia, what's happening there?
Well, Adrienne, there's a tense feeling here tonight. While many are supportive of the way the administration has handled this assault controversy, others are venting. There's a lot of passion in this meeting, and some are taking this opportunity to call for accountability. They poured into their former school, armed with questions for the people hired to protect students like they used to be.
I believe it starts with the principal.
What does that look like?
It looks like he needs to be fired.
Returning brings flashbacks for Kyle Frazier. He says he chose to leave in 2013 because of bullying.
Been made fun of even by staff, and I've spoken to other students too that have gone through the same problems, and it's happened here for decades.
All this in light of 2 new occurrences now under investigation.
We now have 4 videos.
Police say one depicts a threat, the other an assault with a belt. 6 students face charges related to another video that depicts an alleged gang sexual assault. It was brought to the school's attention on Monday evening, but wasn't reported to police until Wednesday.
It's a teaching moment, in particular for the school principal. I think if he could walk this back, he would likely do this very differently.
This is not new to this school, obviously.
The assault allegations don't come as any surprise to John Schumann, St. Michael College School class of 1990. After enduring years of taunting, he says he won't send his son to the school to suffer like he did.
Let's make a change here. Let's make our school better by changing this culture, this attitude that this sort of stuff is okay, and we need to make it more closer to our school motto, which is, goodness, discipline, and knowledge. We need to put the goodness where it is in the motto first.
But earlier today, one former student told us he never experienced abuse at the school.
There should be a lot of compassion for what's gone on, but at the same time, this school has taught a lot of young men how to be gentlemen.
St. Michael's College School is promising a sweeping review of its culture and any connection to bullying. Today, the school announced that it's canceling mid-year exams and extracurriculars, including sports, until sometime in the new year.
So, Olivia, as the alumni are leaving there tonight, what are they telling you?
Well, I just spoke to a recent alumni, Larry Cole, and now he just got out of the meeting. He actually graduated in 1969, but he says he's very worried about these issues, of course, but he says that he believes that the administration is taking a positive step.
There's about 300 or 400 alumni in there, and I said the whole focus of the meeting is how what they can do in the future. What they're saying is to make the invisible visible how we can bring this out in the open so students can bring these issues out in the open.
Okay, Olivia, thanks very much. Now, senior correspondent Susan Ormiston is here with the story of another St. Mike's alumnus. We're talking about J.P. Bedard. I gather he was an athlete who had experienced abuse at the hands of a hockey coach before he ever got to St. Mike's, but now he wants to be part of a solution.
He absolutely does, and he's asking where are other powerful alumni from that school publicly calling for change, some of them in that meeting tonight. It's the only way, he says, to shake up a culture, and he's been an advocate for some years for survivors of assault, and he's hoping that this will at least help to shatter that code of silence. You went to St. Mike's 1980, 1981. That's a long time ago.
It is.
Can you help us understand how this could happen in 2018?
Sexual violence is always about a power dynamic. And within a school like St. Mike's, there's a huge power dynamic. There is the power of the school itself and getting accepted to such a prestigious institution. When you are part of an elite sports team in one of these academies or these schools, it carries a lot of privilege. And I think what's going on there is these young men are afraid of losing it. And I know when I experienced an incident at St. Mike's, I was new to the school. I had made the football team. To me, it was a dream come true.
What happened to you? Was it a sexually violent incident?
It was a sexual violent act, yes.
Can you share anything more with me?
You know what, it's already traumatizing enough talking about it. Usually it's 4 or 5 kids, some of older players, people who are bullies, people who have a little bit of privilege and sway on the team and in the school, and they corner a new person, a kid who's vulnerable, a kid who's just trying to fit in, a kid who's desperate to stay on that team, and they take advantage of them. And that's what happened to me.
Did you tell anyone?
No, I didn't tell anybody, and I would be very surprised if any of these boys told anyone. I'd be very surprised if other alumni who have gone through similar incidents, maybe they're in their 20s now, 30s or 40s or even older, I'd be very surprised if any of them have ever told anybody in their lives about what happened to them, if something happened to them at St. Mike's. Because I think we just dismiss this as part of the game. But we're in the Me Too movement right now, and things that we brushed off, thought were normal, we don't think that anymore. And I think that's why this conversation is so awkward right now.
We hope that our kids are more self-aware than perhaps we were in the 1980s. That's what's so shocking to many of us as parents.
Let's break this open. Let's invite the media in. Let's get the police investigators in. Let's get the trauma therapists in. Let's figure out what the heck's going on. I don't think this is a unique problem to St. Mike's or to private schools. This is happening across our city and across our country. And we would be naive to think it isn't.
As an alumni, would you be comfortable sending your son or your grandson now to St. Mike's?
Well, the answer is absolutely no.
Why?
Because I think they have to earn that trust back. Right now, I think that trust has been broken.
Where's the break? Where's the broken chain there?
To me, this entire thing rests at the administration and the teachers. As educators, I mean, I'm a former teacher, as an educator, you are made aware that whenever something like this comes to light, your first responsibility when it involves a minor is to contact the authorities.
Do you have any doubts that there are a number of other incidents over the last 20 to 30 years that could be investigated
I think
now?
there are many that could be investigated. And part of this conversation to me involves a lot of what we recently experienced in the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings for the Supreme Court in the States. I think there are a lot of former alumni from St. Mike's who are probably a little concerned right now that this is hitting the paper as they're sitting in their offices and their firms, and they're realizing that this can come back to haunt them. And we might need that to happen in order for us to create a safe environment for our young men and women to grow up in a safe environment.
Well, it's a heck of a statement to make, and we'll see if that does prove true. But in the interim, what are the alumni asking for?
Well, we're hearing various things, some echoed in that meeting tonight, which we're hearing is sad but calm. Some are saying, you know, there needs to be a change in leadership. Some are saying, let's redraft a code of conduct, especially for incidences of ritualized assault. The school is now saying there will be an online platform for alumni who may have had potential bullying in the past. And they're also saying, please come to a conference with the boys if you think you have any kind of experience in mental health or these issues, and please come and help mentor our boys. And that will be something that J.P. Bedard will want to hear because he's written the principal 3 times offering to help. No response yet.
Okay, Susan Ormiston, thanks very much.
Questions tonight about another institution and how it handles allegations of abuse. The Canadian Armed Forces launched Operation Honor 3 years ago to try to wipe out sexual assaults. Today, the Auditor General said the military still has a lot of work to do. As Salima Shivji tells us, victims say it should start with better support and timely investigations.
Stephanie Raymond's dream of a career in the armed forces shattered when she came forward with an allegation of rape against a superior 6 years ago.
You lose your career, you lose all your friendship. The chain of command doesn't trust you.
Her case, one of several that prompted this in July 2015.
Everybody must continue to work together to eliminate this harmful behavior. It must stop now.
As Jonathan Vance became Canada's top general, he promised to tackle a culture of sexual misconduct in the military. Operation Honor is now 3 years old, but Canada's Auditor General says there are still major gaps in how the force handles sexual assault, especially when it comes to victims. Support for those who come forward with allegations is fragmented, training inadequate. Some soldiers don't feel safe speaking out, and so complaints flounder and investigations drag on.
What we found was that for the military police investigations, they were taking approximately 7 months to be finalized.
7 months for what should have been done in 1. The minister responsible says the military is working on the problem, but he says changing an entire culture of behavior is a complicated process.
I wish that we could fix it immediately, but unfortunately, in this case, we didn't have all the right answers. This was going to take time for us to get an understanding, even as we try to do the right thing.
He points to recent changes, legislation creating a victim's bill of rights in military courts, and there's a new review process that'll take a second look at sexual assault allegations initially deemed unfounded. But Raymond, who's waiting on a new trial date for her alleged attacker, isn't convinced that's enough.
They don't want to deal with the crime or with the accused or with trial.
For her, change has come too late. She hopes it will be soon enough for others. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Auditor General is also taking aim at how the federal government handles your money. If you've ever felt the tax agency didn't treat you fairly, well, you may have been right. The AG found that how the Canada Revenue Agency deals with you and your taxes varies on who you are, where you live, and the agent you're dealing with. For example, taxpayers in one region waited 12 weeks to complete an audit, but 40 weeks in another part of the country. In another case, CRA wanted receipts for expense claims within 90 days, but some taxpayers with offshore accounts were given years to provide the same information. So that inconsistency, the Auditor General says, violates the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Some other stories we're following tonight on The National. Ottawa losing patience over the Canada Post dispute. The government says it's ready to act in the coming days if a deal can't be reached.
They've had well over a year to negotiate this. They've had every support that we could possibly offer them.
The Labour Minister says that the government has reappointed the special mediator to see if Canada Post and the union can reach an agreement. But if that doesn't happen soon, the government says it is prepared to table legislation to end the strikes. That job action now entering its 5th week, and Canada Post says there have been significant backlogs of mail.
Do you have any idea what this is pertaining to?
No, I don't. And neither does the Sergeant at Arms.
A dramatic day at the BC Legislature. 2 of its most senior officials were suddenly escorted out of the building and put on administrative leave. It was then revealed the move was linked to an active criminal investigation underway by the RCMP. But so far, the exact nature of that investigation is being kept secret. Newfoundland's largest oil spill is now impossible to clean up, according to the province's offshore regulator. It says by now the oil has likely broken down to the point where it can't be picked up. 250,000 liters spilled into the ocean Friday during a fierce storm when an underwater valve failed.
Ahead tonight on The National, another twist, a mistrial in the murder of a New Brunswick millionaire, why the judge suddenly dismissed the jury today.
And we'll go in depth on the flu season. We'll ask our panel of doctors, why aren't more Canadians getting the flu shot?
And a little later, Keith Bogue takes a closer look at Donald Trump's new comments about Saudi Arabia and its role in the murder of a Washington Post journalist.
We are with Saudi Arabia. We're staying with Saudi Arabia. And by the way, just so everybody, I have no business whatsoever with Saudi Arabia. Couldn't care less.
In Alberta, about 1 in 4 kids attends Catholic school. That's more than 160,000 students. Now, we're not talking about private religious schools here. We're talking about a whole system of Catholic education, fully funded by taxpayers to the tune of $1.6 billion a year and complete with separately elected school trustees. Only 3 provinces still have education systems like this: Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Why? It has to do with history, politics, and the Constitution. Check out Section 93 of our country's founding legal document. It guarantees the right to separate religious schools to any class of persons who already had them when Canada became a country. This was a way to keep the 2 dominant religious groups at the time happy. It meant Catholics and Protestants could each educate their kids according to their own beliefs, even if they found themselves in a religious minority in a particular area. But wait, you might say, Alberta wasn't a province at Confederation, so why does this apply to us? Well, the Alberta Act of 1905, which created the province, included a similar provision. It guarantees education rights that existed at the date of the passing of this act. That mainly means Catholic schools, but it also means Protestants can have their own separate schools in Catholic-dominated areas. It does not apply to other faith groups, however, who didn't come to Alberta in large numbers until much later. Fast forward more than a century, and this is still the law of the land. The same doesn't apply, though, in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and BC, which didn't have separate systems when they joined Canada. The other 3 provinces did have separate systems for a while, but opted to get rid of them. Manitoba did it way back in 1890. Quebec did it in 1997, and Newfoundland and Labrador became the latest to do it in 1998, following a referendum on the issue. In Alberta, there hasn't been the same push to abolish the Catholic system, but in late 2017, Alberta bishops warned those calls are growing ever louder.
In New Brunswick, 7 years after the death of prominent businessman Richard Oland, a court has declared a mistrial in the retrial of the accused murderer, his son Dennis. The Oland name is a big one in Atlantic Canada. The family founded Moosehead Brewery. Our Kayla Hounsell has more on yet another delay for this controversial case.
As the people of St. John get ready for Christmas, their shopping has once again been interrupted by a dramatic twist in the high-profile Oland case.
we were just talking about that.
At this city market, just hours after a judge declared a mistrial in Dennis Oland's retrial, many are dismayed.
It's just a mess.
But not surprised.
Money talks.
That the case continues to drag on.
It's been 7 years. I mean, that's ridiculous.
The prominent Oland family owns Moosehead Breweries, the oldest independently owned brewery in Canada. Multimillionaire Richard Oland was found face down in a pool of blood in his St. John office in 2011. He had suffered 45 sharp and blunt force blows to his head, neck, and hands. Dennis Oland was convicted of the second-degree murder of his father in December 2015. But nearly a year later, the New Brunswick Court of Appeal overturned that conviction, citing an error in the trial judge's instructions to the jury. Oland has been free on bail ever since.
Dennis and his family have endured the criminal process for over half a decade.
Oland's new trial was scheduled to begin today, but the case has been derailed yet again. The judge says a St. John police officer engaged in improper investigations into the backgrounds of prospective jurors that irreparably tainted the jury selection process. He discharged the 16 jurors. Tonight, the police board announced it will ask for a review into the officers' conduct. Oland's lawyer says this latest mishap can be added to the list of problems with police actions in the case.
The defense contended at the first trial that Dennis Oland was charged because of the mistakes, the confusion, even the bungling actions of the St. John police force, who too quickly focused on him and failed to find and follow the clues to the real killer or killers.
Dennis Oland will now be tried by judge alone. He has maintained his innocence from the very beginning, and his family has stood by him every step of the way. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, St. John.
Up next on The National, we go in-depth with our panel of doctors. They'll weigh in on our top story, the cross-border warning about E. coli and romaine lettuce, and why it's time to rethink how we sell the flu shot. Andrew will be back with them right after the break.
My name is Jordan Bennett. I'm Mi'kmaq from Dahamcook, now known as Newfoundland. And I'm a visual artist. I work in a lot of mediums, including painting, sculpting, performance, and traditional Indigenous tattoo revival. So a lot of times I create a work and I might think that it might look great as a painting, and then the next thing you know, I'm doing it as a sculpture or I'm doing it as a performance. I usually let the idea kind of do whatever it needs to do. So I have a couple pieces in the exhibition at the Winnipeg Art Gallery as part of an Insurgence Resurgence. One of the pieces is a collaboration with fellow artist, Indigenous artist Dee Barcy, and we created each a painted mural element that exists in two places. One on a building on Broadway in Winnipeg, and the other version of it is a reproduction of that piece, which is on the outside of the Winnipeg Art Gallery. A lot of the quill work that I'm referencing, I really enjoy putting them in the public view. Take them out of a museum context, which is a lot of times where we see a lot of these pieces now. I was not expecting this. I did not expect to walk into the room and see this piece. The first time I ever saw this piece was in a book wrote by Ruth Holmes Whitehead, and seeing this, it's kind of like seeing a painting that you've loved your entire life, but then you see it in person and it just kind of rattles your skull a little bit. I think the only way to learn more about these things is to actually spend time with them. Because I feel like the longer you spend time with something or someone or some place, the more you learn about it, and the more you learn about them, more yourself. So this piece is just next level. When I create an artwork that's larger than life, like quill work, and I blow it up, it does confront you, and it does make you question the history, and it's more in your face. A lot of times folks see them and they think that they're these, contemporary artworks in a sense, like that's how they exist and that's all they are. But there's so much embedded history of the designs that are based on landscape, stories and journeys that have taken place for hundreds and thousands of years on this land in Mi'kmaq. Another piece that I'm a part of in the exhibition is alongside of fellow artists Amy Melbuff and Dion Kaz, is called Earthline Tattoo Collective. With the assistance of the Winnipeg Art Gallery, we created a tattoo shop within the art gallery itself. And it was a wonderful experience to share the methods of traditional Indigenous tattooing through hand poke and skin stitch. I think that the work that I'm trying to do is a way of continuing, and also a way of paying homage and honor to the artists and artisans that came before and allowed these forms to exist in the world, like they created them. And to be able to add to that dialogue using new materials like zip ties, or through murals, or through a variety of contemporary materials that I have access to, I think is a way of reawakening a lot of these designs that have been sleeping for a while.
It's that time of year.
Things get very busy and not in a good way.
Fever, chills,
Body aches, nausea.
Aches and pains.
It's flu time. It's that season.
Doctors' offices get slammed. Emergency departments get crowded.
Hospitals get full.
This happens every year.
This can be a very serious illness.
And we need to take it more seriously.
Flu is the 7th leading cause of death in Canada.
The flu shot is not perfect, but it's the best protection we have.
People don't get the flu shot because they often underestimate that the flu itself can be deadly.
My best advice to patients is to go ahead, get the flu shot for themselves and every one of their family members.
I'm Dr. Danielle Martin, family physician and vice president at Women's College Hospital in Toronto.
I'm Dr. Samir Sinha, and I'm a geriatrician and the director of geriatrics at Sinai Health System and the University Health Network in Toronto.
I'm Dr. Lennox Baum, Chief Medical Officer at the Hospital for Sick Children. Okay, hello, welcome back to the studio. First things first, you may or may not notice over the course of this panel that I'm a bit under the weather. The old voice box is going, so bear with me. The good news is that I literally am surrounded by doctors right now, so this is a good thing. I'll be okay. If we could, we're going to get to the flu in just a moment, but I'd like to start talking about romaine lettuce. So we have a warning that's gone out across the United States. In Canada as well, particularly in Ontario, in Quebec, a warning that it may be contaminated with E. coli, romaine lettuce. So if you have it, throw it out. If you suspect you might have it, throw it out. How concerned ought we to be? Well, I think at this point there's not a reason to be alarmed. I think if you do happen to have lettuce at home, you should have a look at it. Fortunately, most people who do consume this are likely to be relatively well. And they're not likely to have any symptoms or any ill effects because our bodies are really great at handling all sorts of things that we throw at it.
And Dr. Martin, what are the symptoms of an E. coli infection?
Well, in the very worst case scenario, people can get really extremely sick from E. coli poisoning and can end up with kidney failure and all kinds of really serious effects. But most people, if they experience symptoms at all, will have an upset stomach, diarrhea, and sort of feel unwell and under the weather for a couple of days. And if that's the case, and if you have any of those symptoms and you've consumed romaine lettuce, you should definitely go and see your family physician or your primary care provider.
And I suppose, might those symptoms only manifest after a certain period of time from consuming?
It often takes a number of days, 2 to 8 days, they say, in order for those effects to make themselves known. So sometimes you have to think back a little bit, try to remember what you ate. But we see these food outbreaks periodically. We see them not just with lettuce, but in the case of E. coli, often in hamburger meat and other ground up meat products. And so it's a good reminder that our food supply, keeping our food supply safe is very important. And if there's an outbreak of an infection with food traveling such long distances across the continent, it can move from one place to another.
Right. And I will say I was startled to see in the official warning from the Center for Disease Control that the suggestion was if you suspect you may have had romaine lettuce, say, in your fridge, that you should actually wash and disinfect your fridge out of fear of contaminating other food. And so I suppose, Dr. Sinha, a common question might be, hey, could I just wash off the lettuce if I prepare a salad or what have you?
I would say if there's been a warning about lettuce, and it's in that batch that could be infected, just throw it out. Right? It's not worth it. It's not worth your life. Now, again, many people will get E. coli and be fine, but some people can, especially if you're immunocompromised, that's the concern that you have. But the key is, wash your food well, always wash your food well. Clean your fridge every once in a while because it can be a source of not just E. coli, but other bacteria. And if in doubt, just throw it out.
Okay. That's the word from 3 doctors, so heed that well. But I do want to switch topics now to another story that has really rocked students and parents, for that matter, here in Toronto. So talking about allegations of violence, of sexual assault at a private Catholic school, St. Mike's, a story that we've covered at length here on The National. And maybe, Dr. Huang, I'll start with you again. From a health perspective, in particular, when you look at this sort of the alleged trauma that may have been inflicted, bullying in general, what was your reaction when you heard the story?
Well, it's heartbreaking to hear these allegations, and my heart goes out to
the families and any children that have been involved with this. I think it's important to realize that children at their hearts are meant to be doing things like playing, learning, and enjoying themselves. Children aren't born to be put into these situations of trauma. And experiencing trauma, experiencing bullying can have long-lasting effects. And I think that's really important for people to know.
You know, the impact on bullies is also really interesting. So there's a stat that I want to flag to you that I thought was interesting. So a group called PrevNet, which is a network of researchers and organizations across the country, there's a statistic that they've put out that suggests 60% of boys who frequently bullied others in elementary school went on to have criminal records by the age of 24, which is an astounding fact. I mean, you talk about the potential long-term impacts on those who are bullied, but bullies as well.
Well, and in fact, we know that many people who are abused themselves as children go on to abuse their own kids, for example. And so there are cycles, intergenerational cycles of violence that we see all across our society, and not just in schools and other institutions, but also, unfortunately, in our homes, you know, in our daycare centers, in our piano teachers, you know, environments, et cetera. In other words, you know, it's not as though this is an issue that is confined to a single school or to schools in general. You know, there's another statistic that I find really important when we think about the impact on long-term health, which is that more than 50% of adults who with mental illness and addiction report a significant trauma in their own early childhoods. So we think about trauma, you know, people often think about trauma as sort of causing PTSD, and it can, post-traumatic stress disorder, but also short of post-traumatic stress disorder, there are other long-term emotional and mental health impacts from being abused or traumatized or hurt as a young person, and there are long-term physical health effects as well. So there, you know, the impacts can be far-reaching for young people who are involved in situations like this.
And Dr. Sinha, I mean, what do you make of the fact that, I mean, in this particular case, Toronto police, they said that this started as a hazing incident. Does that seem to you to be a kind of mitigating factor when you talk about the long-term health implications of someone who's bullied? And I wonder if, you know, that this happened in the confines of a hazing incident, of initiation or of sport in general, if that changes the equation fundamentally, or do you think that this is just as damaging, hazing or not?
Well, I think, you know, sometimes we use words like hazing. We say, well, it's just, you know, it's something that maybe got out of hand. But the root issue here was that people were taking advantage of another person who probably didn't want to be put in that position. And that's the root of bullying. That's the root of abusing other people. And the challenge is that, you know, we focus on this issue with children. But there was another statistic that came out the other day that reminded us that 50% of people in the workplace, you know, in our workplaces, report that they're either being bullied or they actually witness bullying behavior. And then when you think about my patients, right, I primarily work with older Canadians, and really you see rates of elder abuse are on the rise because that behavior that may have impacted you as a bully as a child and stays in your family could be how you treat your parents, how you treat other loved ones, and can also not just take into account physical or sexual abuse, but financial abuse, emotional abuse, many other forms. And so it's an issue that really can span the generations, and it's something we need to be more aware of, and we need to do better at addressing and letting people know that it's not acceptable.
We should move on to another topic that we actually will be talking about all winter long, and that is the flu. Flu season well underway, but despite years of, I mean, let's call it aggressive public awareness campaigns about the value of getting vaccinated, and by the way, the recommendation that 80% of us ought to be getting vaccinated, only about 29% of Canadians 12 and up actually get the shot. Meanwhile, flu is one of the top 10 causes of death in Canada. An estimated 3,000 to 5,000 Canadians died last year because of the flu, and every year the flu hospitalizes more than 12,000 people in this country. So why has the message of get vaccinated been so ineffective? I mean, who wants to field that question?
Well, you know, I think because it's a yearly thing as opposed to a one-time and you're done with it, people think it's optional. They think it's like a pumpkin spice latte that, well, maybe I'll take it or leave it. And they don't actually understand that how important it is to protect themselves, but then also all the people around them, whether it's young children or it's older adults, the really vulnerable populations.
And would you agree that it's the messaging that's flawed here?
I think the other thing is language is important, right? So we were talking about, is there a difference between hazing and assault? Is there a difference between the flu and influenza? How many times do I see people in my office who say, I had the flu last week? And what they mean by that is I had a cold, I had a runny nose, I had a sniffle,
They may not have actually
I wasn't feeling
had
well,
the
or
flu.
the flu is also often used to describe, I had an upset tummy, I had some vomiting and diarrhea, but in fact, influenza is a very serious illness, and it hits you like a ton of bricks. Your muscle aches and pains all over your body. You're in bed. You've got a high fever. I mean, if you had the flu, you would know it.
But then, why don't people believe that is true?
I mean, I wonder actually if we called it the influenza vaccine instead of the flu shot, people might take it a little bit more seriously, because the flu has come to mean different things to so many different groups of people, and so we don't always, it's not necessarily that we don't take the vaccine seriously always, it may be that we don't take the illness itself seriously, and therefore are not as motivated to protect ourselves.
So how does one then get the message out and actually convince people to get the flu shot or the influenza vaccine, however we want to put it?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of skeptics about the flu vaccine because they say, well, it's not 100% effective. It's not like the polio vaccine or other vaccines that we know you get it once and it works, in a good way. And then, as Danielle was just saying, people say, well, the flu, isn't it the cold or whatever? But we have to really remind people that influenza can kill. It's a serious illness, and often the challenge is that it's not necessarily maybe the influenza that kills you. It might actually trigger a worsening of your chronic condition, especially for an older person. So it might actually be the precursor to developing a deadly pneumonia or an exacerbated heart condition or lung problem. And then mom or grandpa or whoever passes away, and people say, oh, well, they died because they had a heart attack or that, but they don't realize it was the flu that set everything off. Right. And so people underestimate how deadly it can be, and the key is that even if it's only 40% effective or 60% effective, that's still 40 or 60% more effective than not getting it at all.
And I suppose, whether or not you want the vaccine to be protecting you, it is certainly true that it helps protect others.
That's right. Absolutely. And so it's a public health service in addition to being a service to yourself.
All right. Well, Dr. Sinha, Dr. Huang, Dr. Martin, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Up next on The National, the growing international concern over the man who could soon lead Interpol.
His representative in charge of the most important international crime-fighting organization is like putting the mafia in charge.
First, though, a look at a story you'll see here tomorrow night on The National. Briar Stewart will take us to California with a dispatch from the ruins left behind by wildfires.
One look at the scorched neighborhoods of Paradise, California, and the damage is painstakingly clear.
Do you want a DOB on him?
But what's still unknown is just how many of those who lived here didn't make it out in time.
I just want information. I want answers to know if he's safe and well, and if he can please contact us.
With hundreds still unaccounted for, we'll have the search for the missing tomorrow on The National.
Securities aims, Rex McCafferty is a long-time Bay Street beer watcher and author of a recent report on the Canadian brewing industry. have to recognize Iran itself has managed to retain 5.2% of the market in a very short period of time. That's an exceptional performance for any new brand launch. Normally, a new brand is considered a success if it manages to retain even 1 or 2%. Really, this is Canada isn't true. It's three major victories. LaBasse Wilson's incredible eighth walk in a life and death sport. And the Canadian Budweiser Code gives LaBasse the current edge. To give you a bit of history, Wilson was winning the British States. After that was having difficulties with the 50 man, and Wilson had made that leap for the last year. That is the message of Canada. June 1980, Budweiser quietly crosses the border into Alberta. 1981, armed forces surge into Saskatchewan, British Columbia, Ontario, and Quebec. Now, in the wake of this invasion, Colonel O'Keefe, trailing in third place in the South Sweepstakes, is seriously considering a Canadian version of River Light. Meantime, at the Maps, the general denies the Oland invasion. First one said, Another Canadian drinkers respond to Biden. We laugh now. Quebec's Budweiser supply was sold out the first day, and wherever it was introduced, it was hard to get. Bud was a hit, and it stayed a hit. That with everyone. But I was a little disappointed because I was expecting something along the lines of what price of the States. But I put on that having some games. But closest to Canadian beer. I also laugh that it is just weird. We drink like wine. We take a Candy Crush and family meals. I'm out of the States because it tastes more like hay. I was stationed that way for a while. If I hit other cigarettes, I ended the beer. I got a pint of Canada. I find it very nice. I'm getting out of the long beach. It doesn't give me acid. It's the same thing as the other beer. This thing is always this beer does not give you gas. I think this beer, people are burning on these things. As much gas as else I burn.
We are live on the National and tracking the latest out of Afghanistan. A national day of mourning has been declared following a suicide bombing in Kabul. It happened at a gathering of religious scholars at a hotel banquet hall near the airport. At least 50 people were killed, dozens more were hurt. No one has claimed responsibility yet, but the Taliban leadership says it was not them. Guatemala's Fuego volcano has erupted again, spewing hot ash, lava, and dangerous gas. Nearly 4,000 people have been evacuated from nearby areas, many taking refuge in shelters. This is the volcano's 5th eruption so far this year. This was supposed to be the day that we were to hear what U.S. intelligence had to say about the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. What we got was Donald Trump offering a different view. The U.S. president says further sanctioning Saudi Arabia would be bad for business. And as Keith Bogue tells us, it has eclipsed another controversy, this one concerning his daughter.
Ivanka Trump made the early headlines when it was reported she'd used a private email account for government business. That's not very different from what President Trump had repeatedly said made Hillary Clinton a criminal. And then, presto. That story was overtaken, perhaps deliberately, by another, this one from the White House. Donald Trump issued a statement about Saudi Arabia that appeared to be thrown together by the president himself. It was laced with explanation points and blunt language that cast doubt on his own U.S. intelligence reports that Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi had been murdered at the direction of Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It could very well be that the Crown Prince had knowledge of this tragic event, Maybe he did, and maybe he didn't, it read.
We are with Saudi Arabia. We're staying with Saudi Arabia. And by the
Trump
way,
admits he hadn't seen or heard all of the evidence the CIA has against bin Salman, but he repeated that it's unconvincing.
they didn't make a determination. And it's just like I said, I think it was maybe he did, maybe he didn't. $3 billion.
Trump says he's protecting his Saudi relationship because that's in America's best interest. He says Saudi Arabia intends to invest billions of dollars in the U.S. The Washington Post responded to Trump's statement with a statement of its own. It said Trump was betraying long-established American values of respect for human rights, and that he was placing personal relationships and commercial interests above American interests. Trump is sensitive to suggestions that he has personal dealings with Saudi Arabia.
Just so you understand, I don't make deals with Saudi Arabia. I don't have money from Saudi Arabia. I have nothing to do with Saudi Arabia.
Whether that's true is something Democrats intend to investigate next year when they have the power to demand Trump's tax returns. Meanwhile, Trump says he's fine with meeting bin Salman at the G20 in Argentina next week, if they can work that out. Keith Bogue, CBC News, Washington.
Canada says it intends to use the G20 to push for answers, saying those responsible for Khashoggi's murder must answer for it.
Right, and Canada has also raised some concerns about another international story we are tackling tonight, the choosing of a new head of Interpol. So the government is watching very closely and is particularly worried about Russia. Here's why. Tomorrow, members of Interpol, including Canada, will vote for a new president, Interpol being one of the world's top crime-fighting agencies. So far, so good. But the alarm is being sounded because, as Chris Brown reports, some fear Vladimir Putin might be trying to turn Interpol into a sort of personal police force.
A ferocious critic of Vladimir Putin, British-American businessman Bill Browder is a wanted man in Russia. Authorities here have tried and failed to have him arrested through Interpol 7 times. And now Vladimir Putin could soon have one of his own generals, Alexander Prokopchuk, in a position to make those arrests stick, if, as expected, he's picked to head up the agency.
To put his representative in charge of the most important international crime-fighting organization is like putting the mafia in charge.
Browder spearheaded Magnitsky legislation in Canada, the U.S. and Europe, which has been used to sanction corrupt Russian officials. In response, Putin's government has hit Browder with a slew of unfounded criminal charges. Today, a who's who of prominent Putin critics joined together to try to head off Prokopchuk's election.
Whoever is the Kremlin official who becomes the president of Interpol, however professionally accomplished that person may be, he or she will have to follow orders from the Kremlin, and this is exactly what General Prokopchuk will be doing.
Interpol's troubled leadership problems burst into the open last month with the arrest of its president, Meng Hongwei, in his native China, allegedly for corruption. That opened the door for Prokopchuk, the agency's number 2, to take over. A possibility that clearly excites the Kremlin leadership. The so-called civilized world is united in their Russophobia, exclaimed a host on Kremlin-sponsored state TV, suggesting Western fears about judicial abuses are ridiculous. The Interpol election clearly caught Putin's critics off guard, and today's pushback may come too late. The plan B, they say, is a legal challenge to try to get Russia thrown out of Interpol for using the agency to settle political scores. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
Next on The National, a Montreal landmark is turning 90 and celebrating by giving back in time and giving back to its customers.
I came here just for the special deal, 90th anniversary of Schwartz. I love Schwartz. I love the sandwiches here. This is the best spot to come in Montreal for sandwiches.
Marlene, I'm on TV. It's for you, Billy Bob. Okay. I get the money from him now. Ooh, I'm so happy to be here I could drop a log. Good. I can't sit down. I'm too excited. Mary Jo, Jean, Billy Bob, John, get in here now.
Is that one person?
Oh, no, that's 2 of them. Those are my 2 mutant boys.
Oh, really?
They're nice. It's nice to be here, boy.
Is this your first time in Canada or not?
Yes, sir. I drove all the way from Squealer, Idaho to be here.
Did you?
Yes, sir.
What did you drive?
Well, I drove our truck, Mary Beth. It's a big old sucker. It's huge. Wait, my family's in the car. Marlene! Marlene, bring the dogs in, too. Mr. Zowski don't mind. All right.
You cannot send personal messages out on television.
Oh, I better take all that early stuff back.
Yes.
I need it. Oh, need it.
I know you. I have met you before. You have been on this show before.
No, sir. No. If it were, I'd be going deja vu right now. I know I haven't, but may I just take your picture for some people?
Yes,
Just
of
a
course.
quick thing.
Go
Just a
ahead.
quick thing here.
What do you have?
It's one of them Japanese cameras. Also, desk on the wall. I don't know how to work the sucker. I don't care, though. Here it goes. Here we go. Here we go, sir. Ah! It didn't come out.
What didn't?
What, the picture didn't, but that's okay. I'll just save it anyway. They won't care where I live.
No.
Al, I got intelligent. Put it back on.
What, you turn intelligent when you take your hat off?
I don't know why. Every so often that happens. That's why I wear it constantly. Don't matter. What is reality anyway? You know.
Take your hat off and let me introduce you properly, please.
Oh, no, I can't. Really? Is it hard to do that? No, I can't. I'll just stay this way. I don't...
Dumb.
Dumb.
Yeah.
I'll kill you for that. Just kidding. That's an old Iowa joke. Does a chicken have lips? We don't know. Damn.
Take
it off now.
Take your hat off.
Okay. It's okay now. I feel like this is okay. There's no problem now. You won't be afraid of me, will you? I promise not to hurt you. Shh. Okay.
This is, of course, Robin Williams. Last time you were on the show, you were Russian.
Proszę sobie.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry for you.
Yes.
I have new Russian suppression to do for you.
Do you? Yes.
Quick one. Karl Marx, okay?
Okay.
Soviet suppression. Karl Marx. Imperialism, that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Montreal's iconic Schwartz's Deli is turning 90, and in honor of its anniversary, the staff there rolled back prices all the way back to 1928. That meant patrons could enjoy a smoked meat sandwich, fries, and a cherry Coke, all for just a little over $1. So the deal lasted for just 3 hours over the lunchtime rush. Fans and longtime customers braved the cold to celebrate the deli and, of course, to eat a cheap sandwich. And that is our moment of the day.
This was something to give back to our loyal customers, and so we figured, instead of a free meal, $1.09 just to represent 1928.
And in true Montreal fashion, a little snow and cold didn't lessen the lineups.
I love Schwartz. I love the sandwiches here. This is the best spot to come in Montreal for sandwiches.
Get the medium fatty, medium, it's like just right.
This is the most famous place in Montreal to try the smoked meat sandwich.
A deli apparently is not just a deli. What makes Schwartz's so famous all these decades later?
Over the years, we've had a few different owners, but exactly same recipe since 1928. Because it works. It's the best thing. I mean, why change something that works?
But a lot has changed since Reuben Schwartz first opened up. These days, Celine Dion is an owner. Yes, that Celine Dion.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonne fête soirée. Bon appétit.
Longevity apparently doesn't always buy loyalty, though.
If you can't get into Schwartz, go to the main. I usually go to the main. It's better than Schwartz.
What a thing to say. I can tell you it is always full, even when they're not offering all that for $1.09. But to me, the most incredible thing about this today is that it's not even the oldest, still functioning restaurant in Montreal. Montreal Pool Room started in 1912. And I know you don't believe this, but Old Montreal's L'Auberge de Saint-Gabriel, 1754. It's still open.
Is that possible?
Yes, it is.
All right. And listen, I remember when I was a university student in the Maritimes, going with friends to Montreal, and Ben's Delicatessen, we heard about it, we went to it. I think very much the same kind of experience as Schwartz's. The person there who greeted us was kind of rude in a very charming way, and we loved it. I'm going to Montreal tomorrow, so one way or the other, smoked meat is in my immediate future.
Bring some back.
That is the National for November the 20th. Good night.